Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Women Talking, starring Rooney Mara, Claire Foy, Jessie Buckley, Judith Ivey, Sheila McCarthy, Ben Whishaw, and Frances McDormand, directed by Sarah Polley. Now, Sarah Polley, I know this director as she was an actress in the remake of Dawn of the Dead from 2004. And why is she a director? Well, she wants to tell a powerful story. Let's get into this. But before I do, I'm going to make this a short show because it's about one thing and one thing only, debating whether or not these women get out, stay, or fight back with the men, as it focuses on one thing this entire movie. And so I'm going to make this review pretty short. The year is 2010. In an isolated religious grapple, a bunch of women leading with Ona, played by Rooney Mara, are brutally abused by their husbands and decide whether to leave, fight back, or stay with their abusive husbands. And I honestly thought this was going back to decades ago, but nope, this is 2010 when this is taking place. And believe it or not, this is unfortunately women are still being attacked, raped, and abused. Still happens to women today, which is very, very sad. A very, very sad story. But I admire director Sarah Polley for telling this powerful story. That unfortunately still happens today. And they have meetings with Ona, as well as a feisty Salome, played by Claire Foy in a very unrecognizable way. Marish, I don't know if I'm saying the name right, played by Jessie Buckley, who I reviewed earlier last year in Alex Garland's Men, but has a better role here than in that film. Agatha, played by Judith Ivey, with others whom I forgot their names, as in one meeting with Scarface Jans, played by Frances McDormand, who wants to stay with the abusive men and forgive them. And if I were abused like the way these women were by the men, I would leave and also fight the bastards. Excuse my French. Which shows the audience how much I care about these women. And so they can get the hell out of there. Who's also in the meeting? August, played by Ben Whishaw, who was Q in the last three Daniel Craig James Bond movies, as well as the voice of Paddington. As he's joining him for his mother's reasons, as he's a teacher of the schoolboys and has a crush on Ona, and as we see it growing for the rest of the movie, while most of the meeting takes place in a barn, and he writes leaving in prose with pros and cons, and I enjoyed this kind of movie where they debate on whether leaving or staying at their homes. The cinematography looks fantastic as it's a dark but beautiful looking movie. The narration is breathtaking by a little girl whom I couldn't tell you who that was. And these actresses are playing in this movie is tremendous to the point, like I brought up, I deeply care for what happens to them, whether they leave or fight up by the end of the movie. We see these women laugh, cry, bleed, and devastated, as this is at times hard to watch, but I admire what writer director Sarah Polley is doing for back then, as well as today's world, as it's a great time to tell this spectacular story, as I knew her as an actress first from that remake of Dawn of the Dead, which I brought up from 2004. At the end of the day, I'm very glad these women decided to leave with these abusive men without saying goodbye to them bastards, or a word about them leaving, or the reason why they want a divorce, as they leave with horses and all girls and some boys, I'll say, that are under the age of 15 years old, as that's a smart choice in my opinion. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 8.6 out of 10. I admire the story as this is unfortunately still happening today, as director Sarah Polley does a fantastic job at taking things their point of view, as I only know her from before directing this movie as an actress in that remake of Dawn of the Dead from 2004, which I brought up a couple times. And this is their kind of movie. I enjoy watching is a lot of debating, and that kind of drama is my kind of movie. The cinematography is dark, sure, but this is a fantastic looking movie as the acting was tremendous, and these actresses made me care for these characters as I was completely worried about them this entire movie, but I'm glad they made the choice they made at the end of the day. The narration between the dialogue The narration is breathtaking, and the dialogue is very well done by the writer and director Sarah Polley, and this is getting a solid recommendation from me. But keep in mind, it can be depressing, but watch it. It works spectacularly. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and I will be back next year with the Oscar nominees for Best Picture. And until we get to next year, and the Oscar goes to